Practice Makes Perfect by Neon Zangetsu. Chapter 7, Just a Little Understanding. Chapter 2, Achoo. Naruto heaved a hearty sneeze. Juniper offered him a tissue. Here, dear. Thanks. He accepted it with a smile, idly wonderful to himself. Was someone talking about him? Surely not. It had only been a day, an entire day, and still not a peep from Ironwood. 2 days remained. Surely he wasn't trying to call his bluff. He had to know better. Then again, he wasn't a father. He didn't understand what it meant to have a family, to be responsible for them, to protect them. And at the end of the day, Naruto was a very protective papa. He recognized it, knew it, and admitted it. In hindsight, he had every reason to be. His children were special, powerful, perilous. If left unchecked, they could cause untold havoc. Likewise, if anyone, threatened his family, he'd rain fire and brimstone down upon them. These were his babies, they'd always be, but there were more important matters to attend to, such as this. Mom, Dad, Naruto felt the fingers of ice run down his spine. He turned back, knowing who he would find there. Saffron beamed back to them in the kitchen, the very picture of light and life. She'd slunk back home shortly after the attack, and while that was all well and good, she'd not come alone. There's someone I'd like you to meet. She nudged someone forward. I know this is awful timing and all, but this is Terra. Juniper's hands flew to her face. Oh my, she's adorable. Naruto grunted. In short order they found themselves face to face with a tanned young woman. Behind those red glasses of hers, her eyes were a pleasant brown to match her hair, of which she had a single smooth bang. Clad in a dark navy-colored shirt, with a light blue cardigan, dark gray jeans, and crimson sneakers, she looked absolutely harmless. Dot, dot, dot. Dot dot dot. At least she would have been if she wasn't holding Saffron's hand. Every fatherly instinct Naruto had brindled as one. He didn't trust this. Taro could be a spy for all he knew, an enemy infiltrator meant to strike when their guard was down. Yes, that was precisely what she was. Certainly not his own parental paranoia playing up. No, certainly not. A weatherly blue eye swept towards the window and found the other girls happily playing. Well, perhaps "playing" was too tame a word. Sable had a surgeon specialist in a headlock, with Jean sat on his back. A bemused Sabrina and Zula looked on as Valen scoffed at it all. Poor Mero. He'd gone and gotten himself dogpiled again, pun intended. Good boy, that one. He'd make a decent babysitter. That, or find himself wrapped around their finger. Probably the latter. But Saffron was waiting for a reply, and he must attend. So he felt a brittle smile stretch across his whiskered visage. Dating my daughter, are you? Credit where it was due. Tara warbled only a little. She didn't faint either. Points for that. Yes, sir, if that's all right with you. How nice of you to ask my permission. The blonde stroked his chin as a thought occurred to him. Now that you mention it, you said you worked with Argus. Do you work for Atlas? Juniper swatted his arm. Naruto. What? He quirked a brow. You can't blame me for asking. The question stands. In a sense. Tara fidgeted a little beneath his stoic stare. Really, I'm just an engineer. Oh, ho. Well, that's just fascinating. His smile was all teeth. Tell me all about it, or I could always have Valen ask you. Daddy, no. Saffron bowled between them before he could finish. We talked about this. No interrogations. No scaring her off. She'll be gentle. Ow! He hissed when Juniper pinched his arm. All right, all right. I'll just be over here getting some water. Juniper slid into a seat and beckoned them to do the same. I'm sorry about my husband, yet for all that, her smile had an edge of her own. Tell us how you met one another. Don't spare any juicy details. How many grandchildren do you tend to give us? Naruto inhaled sharply, all but choking on his drink. Taro squeaked and hid behind Saffron. Their daughter turned scarlet. Isn't it a bit early for that? You're right. Whatever are my manners? Juniper touched a hand to one cheek. With the other she wiped out her scroll. I simply must tell your brother about this. He'll be so proud. Saffron blushed, went nuclear. Mother, no, not John. Too late, as she was already punching in numbers. Mommy, no. Mommy, yes. John considered himself a good judge of character. Well, relatively speaking, he had a good sense of preservation. Surely that could count for something when one had as many sisters as he. A strong survival instinct was necessary. In that same vein, he had learned when to stand his ground and when to run like hell. He knew he wasn't the strongest, the fastest, or even the sharpest, but at the end of the day, he knew enough to get by. And right now, flee, fly you fool, run away. Yes, right now his instincts were telling him to fling his scroll out his bedroom window and run for the hills. Surely the Emerald Forest was safer than this. Hell, anywhere on Remnant was safer than his dorm. Why didn't he block Mom's number? His sisters blocked, well, except for Saffron. Dad definitely blocked. He was scary when he got angry, but for some unfathomable reason, he hadn't quite gotten around to blocking Juniper Arc. Against his better judgment, he set the scroll to his ear. Hey, Mom. There was a silence. You there? John Arc, her voice promised the doom. You had better hope your father finds you first, because if I do, I will take you over my knee and tan your hide until. Pyra leaned over his shoulder. Is everything all right? Hello there. Mom changed gears so quickly it left his head spinning. And who might you be? Just like that, her manner was smooth as cream. You look like a nice girl. Her bright eyes found Nora next with all the intensity of a hawk. I don't suppose either of you are dating my son by any chance? Pyra flushed. Nora coughed behind her. John turned rose red. Mom! Juniper was silent for a long moment as she listened to their son's rant. All the while, she refused to let Naruto anywhere near her scroll. Really, what did she think he was going to do? Leap through it? He wasn't that powerful. At least she let him listen while he stayed out of sight. The still discussion that followed proved enlightening indeed. Was it wrong that he felt proud just a little? It was so nice talking to you, sweetie. Finally, Juniper blew a kiss his way. But I'm afraid it's time for me to go. Don't be a stranger. A muffled response came through, laced with concern. Oh no, you're still in trouble, mister. Her smile was all teeth. But I'll leave that to your father. Me. Naruto was too much of a prankster to let that slide. Quick as can be, he pulled over Juniper's shoulder, grinning from ear to ear. I'll see you soon, son. John's face went ashen, and the call ended with an audible click. Only then did Juniper deign to show Naruto the picture she had received. It was a rather nice one, all things considered. His son was crammed in between one boy and two girls, each of whom were quite attractive in their own right, but it was the smile that held him. John's grin didn't look faked or forced, rather he actually appeared happy, and he didn't miss the way that redhead pressed herself into his side. He shot to his feet. John's got himself a girlfriend. He might, Juniper cooed. They seem awfully close, and you're grinning, dear. He looked away with a harumph. Am not. I'm still going to tan his side. Are you going to drag him back? Naruto huffed. Haven't decided that yet. The saffron perked her up in her seat. So am I off the hook or absolutely not? Juniper beamed. You're grounded for a month, young lady. She drooped and Tara stays. Wait, that's not a punishment. Someone knocked on the kitchen door, cutting her short. Meryl stumbled in, looking positively harassed. It certainly didn't help that Jean and Azula were all but clinging to him. Sir, there's a visitor here for you. Girls, leave the poor doggo be. Naruto shooed them off. What's the situation? I thought you were keeping watch. I was. The ex-specialist stepped aside, revealing their guest in the yard, but he was rather insistent. He found himself facing a dark-skinned man, sat in a rather large chair, blue eyes lit up. Pietro, you old dog! He surged forward, pulling him into a firm embrace. How have you been? Quite well, thank you. The older man grunted a bit. You haven't aged a day. Careful, I'm not as sturdy as I used to be. Naruto clapped him on the shoulder once and released him. What brings you all the way out here? Sadly, I'm a bit of a messenger this time around. There was a thick manila folder tucked under his arm. I was asked to deliver this to you courtesy of our mutual friend. Naruto accepted it with a frown. Friend? Did he mean Ironwood? He'd have to live through this later. If it had the names he sought, a little visit would be well worth it. Unless, a thought occurred to him, Pietro was one of three people who knew who he truly was. The first was Juniper, and the second, long dead, Elysian forces had attacked them? Surely not, and yet the thought persisted. Speaking of friends, his eyes narrowed. Pietro, you didn't betray me by any chance, did you? Me? The tan man purred, positively pallid. No, never. I'd rather lop off my own arm. Naruto considered him for a long moment. Not a lie. Good. In short order, he had a pair of drinks for them and a table set outside. I'm grateful, of course, Pietro babbled on, heedless of his thoughts. The things you've taught me, the inventions in the art of chakra, no, the very concept of a soul. I wouldn't be anywhere without you. The scientist wiped a bead of sweat from his brow. Penny wouldn't exist without you. Her secret is safe with me. I'll not betray your trust. He fidgeted a bit under his stare. How are the prototypes I gave you? Those sabers were quite difficult to make. John and Balin are using them well, thank you. Forget I said anything, Pietro. Naruto raised the bottle in a toast. Give your girl my regards when you see her again. Yes, yes. His student fidgeted and clinked it against his own. There's just a bit of a problem. Naruto frowned. And that is, from what little I've told her, she thinks you're her grandfather. He wilted a little beneath his glare. She wants to meet you. Thick fingers tented anxiously as he began to sweat again, very badly. I've stalled her for some time now, but Pietro, no, Naruto frown became a scowl. That's an awful idea. I can't come to Atlas and meet her. It's too hot right now. It'll never work. About that. There was a silence. Wait, his sixth sense tingled, blue eyes narrowed at him, azure slits. She's right behind me, isn't she? Something small and thin latched onto his back with a lemur. Salutations, grandfather. Juniper slammed around the corner. Grandbabies, come again? Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose. You had one job, Pietro. Previews. All right, I warned you. Whis barely had time to raise Myrtanaster, then she found herself fighting a storm of blue light. Yang whistled. How many push-ups does that make now? 102. 3, Pyro chimed. She didn't look away from John. Wait a minute. Why is Ruby sitting on his back? Something about weight training, sneaky little sister. Hey, hotshot! Yang planted a fist on her hip. You, me, spar. What'd you say? John grimaced. I don't think that's a good idea. She didn't see Pyro scowl at her back. Glinda frowned. There's something about that boy, something familiar, almost as if. Nonsense, my dear. You must be imagining things. Yes, she relented after a moment. I suppose you're right. It's been a long day, and I'm tired. Good night, Peter. And give James my regards. Nothing personal, girl, he muttered to himself. Once she was gone, I'm afraid I can't let you spill the beans just yet. After all, you'd spoil all the fun. Port whistled a merry little tune as he walked off, all in a day's work. You lost? The mute girl tilted her head and placed one finger in her mouth. She tilted her head slowly, regarded him as one might a curious jewel. Danger! What? She looks harmless. Your father never did teach you to look underneath the underneath. I can't figure this out. Enough. Blake took pity on him. It's simple. Her arm crossed his as she scribbled at the rest of the formula. See, you just solve for the x here, then the route solves through. John grinned. You know you're a pretty nice person, Blake, right? She gulped. Nice. Was he onto her? She stepped back. Another John collapsed her blocked her path. Blake balked. What is this? I'm sorry. I panicked. Please don't tell anyone. We shook her head. No, nay, never. Treacherous thoughts. She was a sneeze. She would never fall to such base emotions. She looked left. She looked right. Left again. Well, if no one was watching. You lot never learn, do you? Naruto turned his head, uncaring of the knuckles currently crushing against his right cheek. That one was free. He smiled, thumbing a thin line of blood away from the corner of his mouth. Now I'm going to show you what true power really is. Blue eyes shimmered red. His body burned golden as he inhaled sharply, lunged in. Lungs swelled with chakra. Saffron sighed and winced. Might want to cover your ears, Tara. John Ark considered himself a good person. He knew what was right. He knew what was wrong. Moreover, he wasn't afraid to put in a bit of hard work to achieve his goals. Practice makes perfect after all, and he had put more practice in than any one of his sisters. He had no idea just how much that mindset would change the world. End of chapter 7.